It's that time of year again, and the days are starting to get shorter. The coffee definitely hits harder and gets stronger. And most of Wisconsin starts to Google, why am I tired all the time? You know the vibe. Motivation starts to drop. Sleep gets weird. Workouts feel heavier. And somehow you're cold and sweating at the same time. And everyone starts blaming the season, the darkness, the weather. And while that is definitely part of it, but what if this slump we feel every fall isn't just about the weather? What if it's our body's way of saying, hey, let's slow down, or I'm going to make you slow down? And here's where I've got to give a massive shout out. And let's be honest, full credit to the real brains behind movement and everything else that's successful in my life. And that's Erica. She is the brains behind it all, the grounded voice, the one who keeps everything moving while I get to be basically the face behind the mic. And that gets pumped out all over social media. But she dropped a hot take a couple weeks ago that really stopped me in my tracks and made me think, what if we stopped dreading the fall and the winter and really started viewing them as a forced slowdown? And I can't really shake this thought. We talked about it in the newsletter a few weeks ago, and I said I was going to record a podcast more about it, but she's absolutely right. Think about it. Spring and summer in Wisconsin are all go mode. Go as hard as you can, as long as you can, do all of the things. It's the outdoor projects, the weekends at the lake, the golf outings, the grad parties, the baseball games, wedding season is in full force, patios, cookouts, you name it, you're doing it during the week, during the weekend, up late, sun's out all the time. You're moving nonstop, basically from April to August, because you want to fit it all in. And then fall hits. And what happens? The weather cools, the days shrink, and everything really starts to slow down. But instead of really welcoming this, we tend to resist it. And we call it a slump. We get restless. We get seasonal depression, which is a very real thing. And I'm not negating that. But maybe this slower season is exactly what our body and really our brain actually need. So today, what I want to do is break it down. What's actually happening physiologically this time of year, how the change in pace affects your stress, your recovery, your overall mental health, and why slowing down doesn't really mean losing progress. It might actually be the way that you progress. And finally, how to use this season to really come out stronger on the other side. Okay. So jumping right in, let's start with what's really happening, because you're not crazy for feeling off. This is something I struggle with. You wake up, it's dark. You get off of work, it's dark. It's just always freaking dark. And so you're not weird or off or crazy for feeling different. This time of year is, it genuinely changes how you operate. The daylight, it drops, and so does your serotonin. Okay. We've talked about this in the past. That's that neurotransmitter that regulates your mood, your motivation, your energy. And then at the same time, your melatonin production increases. And that's the hormone that helps you sleep. So what we get is this mismatch happening, right? Your brain is thinking that it's time to slow down, rest, and recover. But as we all know, your schedule doesn't necessarily change, right? You're still expected to go full speed at work, train the same, keep the same intensity. Responsibilities don't change. Home life doesn't necessarily change. You still have to do all the things, and your body is simply like, bro, I'm trying to hibernate. Like, that mismatch is really what drives most people into seasonal depression, or what the term is now is seasonal affective disorder. And here's the thing. Research really shows about 5 to 10% of people actually meet the clinical definition of seasonal affective disorder. So that leaves the other 90%. And they're not depressed, they're just depleted, right? So we're all running on empty after 6 months of essentially nonstop activity. And fall is the first time that we are really getting the opportunity to slow down long enough to feel it. And that time, personally, to me, is huge, because if you reframe it, and I'm not sitting here saying I'm good at this, this is something I'm working on this year. I've truly never done it. But as my boy NF says, the mind is a powerful place, and what you feed it can affect you in a powerful way, right? So reframing is a very powerful tool. And so if you see this slower time as something that your body wants, something that is beneficial for your mind and for your body, you can really start to stop fighting it. What a terrible sentence. You can stop fighting it and you can finally start working with the season rather than against it. Lean into it rather than push back, right? We're really not designed to be summer people year round. At least I'm not. From a heat standpoint, from a responsibility standpoint, from let's do all the things all the time standpoint, every living thing has seasons. Trees, their leaves fall. Animals, bears, hibernate. The earth literally tilts away from the sun to recover, if we want to think about it in that term. But humans, we think that we're the exception. And I'm not sure if you know this or not. So, spoiler alert, but we're not. Okay. Now, let's talk like body's stress response. We've talked about this again in the past. So, a lot of this is review just in a different light. So, if you've been listening to this podcast or really following along, you've definitely heard of me talk about HRV. And that's your heart rate variability. And then obviously your resting heart rate. This is something I track pretty closely every day. And it causes problems. I'm not going to lie. Erica doesn't necessarily like that I track it because I do deal with obsessive issues. And this is one that if it's not hitting where I want it to be, I stress, which is probably the opposite impact that we want it to have. Anyways, I digress. HRV and resting heart rate, they're not just numbers. They're feedback from your nervous system, okay? So when we are under constant stress, whether it's work stress, life stress, training is a stressful impact, emotional stress, recovery, the saunas, the cold plunges, all of that is stress to your body. And your nervous system is going to sit in that sympathetic mode, okay? So that fight or flight system. And you're wired, you're alert, you're pushing, you're surviving, you're drinking all the caffeine, which will increase stress. It makes me way more anxious, but here I am already. I drink it every day. But your resting heart rate will go up because your body is always essentially ready for battle, okay? Your HRV drops then because your system is losing its flexibility. It's not able to switch into recovery mode as effectively. And a lower HRV is not what we want. A lot of people think obviously like the lower the numbers, the better. But for our HRV, we want that number to be relatively high. So now this is when we start feeling fried. Our sleep really starts to suffer. We become more irritable, short-fused, fatigued. Sound familiar? I'm guilty. So when we actually start to slow down, you get sunlight, you breathe deeper, you move intentionally, you take a real rest, your system can shift gears. Your resting heart rate starts to lower. Your HRV now starts to climb. And that's your body saying, cool, like we can go into repair mode a little bit. And there's, again, solid research showing that people with higher HRV not only handle stress better, but also report higher emotional stability and better cognitive function. If you want to dive deeper into this, the name Peter Attia is becoming almost a household name in the health and wellness world, which is awesome. He has a ton of info out there. I recommend checking him out. Another source is Ben Greenfield, some big name podcast guys. But this slower season might not just help your recovery, but it's also going to literally help your brain function better. And this is why the fall and winter forced slowdown is how we're going to approach it matters. It's not about doing less necessarily. It's really about restoring balance that you can build if you're constantly breaking down, or you can't build it if you're constantly breaking it down. All right. Now, movement is still medicine, right? So slowing down doesn't mean doing nothing. I'm not saying hibernate on a couch like Wheezy's doing over there right now. You still need to move. You still need to function. You just might need to change how you approach it. Okay. Exercise is simply one of the most powerful antidepressants on earth, and it's free. I talked about this in a podcast a few episodes ago. If movement and exercise was a pill, it would be the number one seller. Big pharma would be pushing it and pumping it out all over the place. But because it's free, because it's something you can choose to do, it's not a pill. It ain't making anybody any money outside of the gyms. It's not necessarily looked at as an antidepressant, but studies consistently show that moderate, consistent exercise can reduce symptoms of depression and anxiety as effectively as medication in many cases. Not all the time. I'm not saying that this is for everybody, okay? well, shoot, I am saying that exercise can be beneficial to everybody, but medication does have its time and place. I'm not negating that. As you all know, I have openly spoken about my time using SSRIs for anxiety issues. But exercise definitely does boost your serotonin. It increases your dopamine and it regulates sleep patterns. All of the things that turn into a hot mess this time of year. But here's the key. You don't need to be crushing PRs. You don't need to be doing high intense exercise 6 days a week to get the benefits. The fall and the winter months are the perfect time to focus on quality movement instead of max effort. Okay. Work on mobility, stability, skill work, build strength without running yourself into the ground. Winter is typically a time when people go into like bulk mode, right? Which actually isn't a bad thought process because you can focus on slower, more controlled movements and really leaning into building strength because you don't need to run yourself into the ground. Okay. Think of it like your off season. Athletes don't compete year round most of the time. Okay. There's a whole conversation we could have about youth athlete club teams year round. That's a story for a different day. Athletes train and they recover and they rebuild. And that's what I want all of us to try to focus on during this season. Keep your routine, keep moving, just change your intent, maybe from performance to presence, if that's your jam. If you want to keep competing, just be strategic about it. Give yourself an off season. Again, this is a perfect time to kind of do it, right? And now there's also the mindset. And this is where Erica's take really comes into play here. And again, I am going to give her all of the credit for all of this. Okay. So when she said that maybe the slower season isn't the problem, maybe it's the mindset around it, I think that she is spot on because our default mindset is that slowing down equals failure. I am not someone that can just sit around well and do nothing. Do I enjoy it? Absolutely. Am I good at it? Not at all. My mind wanders, all the to-do lists, and I think of how productive I could be being even during Packer games. If I'm sitting watching the game for a few hours, it is very rare nowadays that I'm sitting doing nothing during those things. So when I'm speaking about this, I'm really talking to myself out loud, okay? We tie our worth as humans to productivity. Our identity is to output. How much in social media, unfortunately, I'm kind of spiraling here. Social media just makes it worse. We compare ourselves to what everybody's doing. Social media shows the good side of things 90% of the time. Most people aren't showing that in their day to day, they're struggling with shit. Okay. So if we're not checking boxes, we start to really question ourselves. I'm not doing this, or I'm not doing that, or this person's out there doing X, Y, and Z while I'm giving myself a little break. But we can't compare, right? We can't necessarily tie our worth to how productive we are. We have to give ourselves grace and listen to our body. If it's saying, hey, slow down, now's the time to do it. And again, it's not saying stop, but it's just listening to ourselves and giving ourselves grace to understand what might be best for our body during this season. Because when we zoom out, honestly, life and performance and business and even health, they really all follow a similar framework. And that is work, rest, adapt, grow. Okay. Work, rest, adapt, grow. Without that middle part, the rest, nothing really adapts. And here's the thing, and I'm not naive to how hard this season can be. For a lot of people, this time of year isn't just dark outside, it's heavy inside as well. Oh God, I'm losing it. It's hard for me personally. Um, I'm recording this Tuesday. It's my dad's birthday today. The first one without him here with us. And we're coming up on the 1 year mark of losing my dad just before Christmas. So again, I'm not naive. This is a heavy time of year for a lot of people and it hits different. I feel it. The memories, the weight, the absence, it's all there. And I know that a lot of you are also carrying your own stuff too. So if the holidays are tough, I promise you, I understand it and I get it. And that's why I think this slower season is so important. It really gives us space to feel, to process, to breathe. And the fact that you don't have to fill every weekend and you don't have to holiday harder. You can just be. Sounds really nice because sometimes the best thing you can do for your health, physical, mental, emotional, is to stop trying to fix everything and just sit in the moment. And that's uncomfortable for a lot of people, myself included. But really, that's where gratitude and growth live. It's not in the chaos, but in the quiet. And if you're looking for a book reference, I highly recommend Ryan Holiday, Stillness is the Key. I am going to reread that myself. I just decided that right now. So let's land this with some tactical stuff. Okay. I really want to have practical strategies and takeaways. The big foundations: get sunlight every day, even if it's cold, even if it's cloudy, the sun's still there. Or if it is cloudy and dark, think that the sun's there. 10 to 20 minutes of light exposure in the morning really starts to reset your circadian rhythm, boosts your serotonin, and helps regulate sleep and mood. I can't stress this enough. If the sun is out, please take time to go outside, even if it's cold. It will be so beneficial. Keep moving, but maybe make it more intentional. This isn't the time for all out hero workouts. You can sprinkle them in. I plan to, but it's the time for quality reps, consistent rhythm, recovery focused training, 2 to 4 lifts a week, walks, mobilities, holla at the rucks, stay consistent, prioritize your sleep. If you are tired earlier, cool, go with it. I have zero shame in saying that there are nights where I'm asleep by 8 o'clock at night. It is freaking awesome. It's dependent on if Link's asleep. Shoot, last last night he was still awake in bed, and I think I fell asleep before him. He was cool. He was chilling. He fell asleep. But it's rare these days if I'm not laying down by 8:15 or 8:30. I'm still thinking of all the things or reading, but it's definitely winding down. So if you have the ability to go to bed earlier and your body is saying, hey, I'm tired, just listen to it. Honor that flow, okay? Stay connected. Don't isolate. Please do not isolate yourself. Grab a training partner, go to the gym, check in on friends, go grab coffee with somebody you haven't seen in a while. Reconnect. Connection is really the antidote to loneliness. And loneliness is also one of the biggest triggers for the seasonal dips. Okay. So surround yourself with people. Don't isolate unless that's what you need, but don't do it day in and day out. And then really reframe your self-talk. This is what I'm focusing on. This is my number one thing, is reframing the self-talk. Language matters. If you spend the next 4 months saying, I hate winter, this is the worst, this season sucks, you better believe that your brain is going to start to believe you. So start saying, this is my reset season. Okay. You'll be amazed at how much that changes your energy and your decisions. So wrapping it up, maybe Erica's right, but if we're being honest, she's spot on as usual. Maybe fall and winter aren't the problem. Maybe they're the teacher, right? The reminder that everything, even high performers, business owners, parents, athletes, weekend warriors, maybe you all just need a season to breathe. Slowing down doesn't mean losing progress. It is literally giving your system space to adapt. So think, this season doesn't have to knock you down. It can definitely build you back up if you approach it differently. So here's my challenge for you. Pick one thing to simplify. Don't go all or nothing. One thing. Pick one thing that fills your cup and schedule both, okay? That's how you can reclaim this season. And for those of you who are struggling, missing someone, feeling off, carrying more than people realize, I see you. I'm with you. This season is definitely hard. It can be hard, but you don't have to go through it on autopilot, okay? Slow down, move, reflect. That's the work. If you need anything, as always, I'm here. Don't hesitate to reach out. I appreciate you. I'm with you. I hear you. And we'll talk later.